She called the cops on us like we were squatters in our own family cabin. It was the middle of July, hot and dry up in the mountains, the kind of summer afternoon where even the wind sounds tired. My younger brother Mason and I had just finished unloading supplies from the truck coolers, tools, groceries for the week, and were headed inside when a piercing honk shattered the calm. We both turned, and there she was, Karen. Pink-tinted sunglasses, neon orange visor, standing beside her shiny white SUV like it was a police cruiser. Arms crossed, hip cocked like she owned the whole forest. "I don't know what you people think you're doing," she yelled, her voice echoing down the gravel road. "But you can't just barge onto private land like that." Mason blinked. "What?" "This is HOA protected property," she snapped. "You're trespassing. And I've already called the sheriff." Now, this wasn't new. Karen had been a problem ever since she bought the house 2 cabins down last winter, and immediately declared herself head of the Mountain Meadow HOA, which by the way didn't even include our lot. But that didn't stop her from slipping notices under our cabin door, reporting our chimney smoke, or accusing our cousins of illegally hiking off-trail behind our own woodshed. But today, she'd leveled up. "Karen," I said, calmly walking toward her. "This cabin's been in our family for nearly 100 years. We're not trespassing. We're home." "You can't prove that," she snapped. "This entire ridgeline was rezoned 2 years ago. Your old squat house probably isn't even up to code. And I've already sent pictures to the compliance board." I swear my eye twitched. Because the truth is, our grandpa, yes, that grandpa was a retired surveyor. And the squat house she was insulting? He'd rebuilt it himself after the fire in '89. We had permits. We had maps. We had a laminated timeline pinned on the cabin wall showing every legal update since 1932. But before I could say another word, the screen door creaked open behind me, and out stepped Grandpa. Full gray beard, sun-worn flannel, and one boot still half-laced. In one hand, he held his thermos of black coffee. In the other, the original land deed, framed, folded back like a weathered battle flag. Karen's mouth dropped. He stepped off the porch slow, like time didn't apply to him. Held the deed up high. "This land's been ours longer than your HOAs existed," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "We fought the state for it. We outlived the mining company. I buried my dog under that maple tree behind the outhouse before you were even born." Karen sputtered. "Why, you can't just show me a piece of paper and expect me to believe." Grandpa turned to me. "Get the flamethrower." I froze. Mason nearly choked on his water bottle. Karen screamed. Actually screamed. "What?" Grandpa blinked. "Kidding," he said flatly. "But I do have a propane brush burner if you want to keep pushing it." And that was when the deputy pulled up. Sergeant Ramos, local, good guy, always polite. He stepped out, looked at us, then at Karen, who launched into a full-blown rant before he could say a word. "They've broken into a private structure," she insisted, waving her phone around. "They've ignored every HOA letter I've sent. There's no posted address, and their chimney was smoking last winter in violation of air quality codes." Sergeant Ramos blinked. "Karen, it's a log cabin. There are rules," she hissed. He turned to Grandpa. "Sir, can I see the deed?" Grandpa handed it over. Sergeant Ramos glanced at it, nodded and said, "This matches the county file. You're good." Then he turned to Karen. "And ma'am, you are on their property right now." Karen blinked. "That can't be. The HOA owns the path." "Nope," Ramos said, pointing. "That split rail fence marks the original survey line. You just crossed it. But they're not even part of the HOA." "Exactly," he said. "They're exempt. Their parcel predates the HOA by 76 years. Karen turned red, then white, then kind of a sickly purple. And then she snapped. She lunged toward the cabin, yelling something about non-compliant retrofitting, and tried to rip down the solar permit we taped to the doorframe. Mason jumped in front of her. Ramos grabbed her arm. And just like that, Karen got cuffed. "For what?" she shrieked. "I'm trying to protect the mountain. I'm the only one doing what's right." "For trespassing," Ramos said calmly. and attempted destruction of private documents. As they loaded her into the car, she thrashed like a salmon on a dock. "You people will regret this. I am Mountain Meadow. This isn't over." But it was. Almost. Because the story didn't end with her arrest. In fact, things only got more ridiculous after that. If you want, I'll continue the final 2,000 words next with the town hearing, the viral twist, and how Grandpa got the last laugh in front of the whole community. Ready? Karen's arrest made it to the local paper within 24 hours. Headline: HOA president arrested after mistaking family for trespassers on their own land. The photo showed her mid-scream from the back seat of the patrol car, visor still on, mouth wide enough to fit a raccoon. By the time we got back into town for supplies, half the general store was talking about it. Mrs. Klaber from the feed shop gave Grandpa a fist bump. "Heard you brought a deed and a flamethrower." She winked. Grandpa just sipped his coffee and said, "Only one of those is true." The truth was, Karen had picked the wrong people to mess with and the wrong mountain. The sheriff's department filed formal charges: criminal trespass, destruction of posted documents, and misuse of emergency services. But things really started cooking when the county council got involved. Turns out, Karen had been filing HOA violation notices on properties not even covered under her HOA jurisdiction. Ours wasn't the only one. 6 other families came forward, all with printed notices signed by Karen herself. Some even accompanied by hand-drawn maps showing expanded buffer zones she'd invented to claim new areas. It was HOA colonization, basically, and it was illegal. A town hearing was scheduled. Karen was ordered to appear. Now, you'd think after a public arrest and weeks of humiliation, she'd show up humbled. But no. She arrived in a bright yellow pantsuit with a binder labeled evidence, and launched into a 20-minute monologue about unauthorized structures, landscape eyesores, and the dangers of ancestral squatting. She claimed Grandpa's original deed was clearly forged, accused the sheriff's deputy of bias against women in leadership, and referred to Mason as the threatening bearded one with bad energy. Half the room just stared. Then Grandpa stood up. He was dressed like a legend-old boots, pressed denim, tucked flannel, and the deed in a clear plastic sleeve this time. He didn't yell, didn't even raise his voice, just calmly walked the room through the property's 91-year history. He explained how he helped draw the original survey lines as a junior assistant in 1956. He had photos of the original land stake, a receipt for the lumber used to rebuild the cabin after the '89 wildfire, and, most devastating of all, a notarized letter from the county engineer certifying that our lot fell completely outside the Mountain Meadow HOA jurisdiction. Dead silence. Then a quiet voice spoke from the back of the room. It was Judith Cobb, Karen's own next-door neighbor and formerly one of her biggest supporters. She stood and said, "I always thought Karen was just strict, but now I see she's dangerous." One by one, others followed. A couple with 2 kids talked about Karen reporting them for letting their children laugh too loudly while playing tag. An older woman said she'd been fined for her wind chimes being spiritually disruptive. A veteran named Derek stood up and said she accused him of hoarding tools when he built a shed for his grandson. It was like the floodgates had opened. By the end of the hearing, the town council had heard enough. Karen's HOA was dissolved pending legal review. The bylaws she'd used were invalidated. A civil probe was opened to investigate whether she'd misused collected HOA funds, which, to no one's surprise, she had. Turns out she'd hired her niece as a compliance inspector and paid her $800 a month using neighborhood fees. Her niece was 17 and lived 2 counties away. Karen tried to fight back with a defamation lawsuit. It was dismissed the same day. The judge called her actions a sustained campaign of harassment cloaked in fake authority. And the cabin? It became a symbol. The story went viral again after a local news crew came out to do a feature on mountain justice. Grandpa gave a short interview while standing in front of the porch, deed in hand. When the reporter jokingly asked about the flamethrower, he deadpanned, "It's not about the flamethrower. It's about knowing where your line is and not letting anyone cross it." The clip hit over 2 million views in 3 days. Someone even started a meme page, Grandpa with the deed. People sent us wood burn signs, mugs, bumper stickers. One person mailed a custom doormat that read, "Deeded, legal, and lit." Just kidding about the last part. We kept it at the front door. But the most satisfying part came a few weeks later, during the new community reorganization. The town voted to replace the dissolved HOA with a voluntary stewardship committee. No more forced rules. No more fake fines. And they asked Grandpa to serve as the first honorary advisor. He declined the title but agreed to attend meetings as a historical land consultant. His only condition, that every meeting be open to the public and start with the words, "This mountain belongs to everyone who respects it." Karen moved away shortly after that, packed up what was left of her reputation and vanished into a different zip code. Rumor has it she tried to join another HOA board downstate and was rejected after someone emailed them the article titled "Mountain Karen Gets Burned by Her Own Deed." As for us, we're still here, still coming up to the cabin every summer, still planting tomatoes in the half-shade by the water tank. Mason built a new fire pit. I hung the viral photo of Grandpa holding the deed in the cabin foyer, right next to the old trout pole and the vintage lantern. And the deed? It's framed, double-glassed, and mounted next to the front door with a little brass plate underneath. It reads, "In this house, we don't play HOA. So now I ask you, was justice served? Or was Grandpa's flamethrower just a little too much, even as a joke? Tell us what you think. Because property may come with lines but truth has roots.